And there we are. We are live for another week. No Bill this week. He's off on his travels. But I am joined by Doc. Hey, Doc. How you doing?
Hello, Ammon. Doing great here. How about yourself?
Getting by. Getting by.
Well,
So what have
sometimes
you
that's the
been up
best we
to
can
this
hope
week?
for.
What have you been up to this week?
Oh, I'm working on a project for a client, and then the last couple of days I've spent playing around with iControl WP, which is a consolidator where you can consolidate all your WordPress sites into one console.
Gigantic mess?
Well, actually, I'm giving it a shakedown. They give you a 15-day free trial, and I'm going through it. A full featured free trial, and it's like $15 a month. And I think I'm probably going to stick with it because I like it. It's got some great security features to it, and it incorporates security as well. But
Well, that's good.
I haven't run into any problems with it at all. I'm very pleased with it, so I think I'm probably going to be sticking with it. And that's been keeping me out of trouble the last couple of days.
Cool.
And of course, I'm getting ready to move Search News Central over to a CDN. Probably be doing that this week. Simply because
I can't help but still feel that, WordPress is an alternative to having a webmaster.
Well, it does. It certainly makes it more accessible to the less experienced folks out there. But
Yeah.
It is also, you can get as intricate and complex as you want with it too. Out of the box, it'll work, but it depends upon what you load into it in the way of plugins and themes. It can be real bloated. But and I've said this several times, I have yet to have a WordPress site that I couldn't get to consistently load in 2 seconds or less. But it's not out of the box. You've got to get into the code and do a lot of things. It's not just image optimization and minification. I mean, you've got to do quite a bit to get some of them. I took one down from 58 seconds out of the box with 3 plugins. 58 seconds is unbelievable, but it was mostly because of the theme, and it was a WordPress org theme. I mean, not one of their, like 2016, 2017, but it was on their repository, a free theme, but it was bloated as hell.
Yeah.
And but you can get into them. You can really do quite a bit with it, but it's not for the average mommy blogger. It's just you're going to have to really get into it, and to the extent that even a year ago I would have been uncomfortable doing some of this stuff. I didn't have that kind of coding experience. And it's not as complex as it seemed to me, but it's not as simple as dropping in a plugin. Somebody the other day on Facebook, one of the Facebook groups, actually it's a Skype group, somebody said they had just picked up a new client and they had 50-some, I think it was 52 active plugins.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you need to get rid of about 40 plus of those.
Yeah.
But people go nuts, and nobody's. It's like either nobody's talking about enough, or they're not reading it enough to hear that you can't just drop in everything that looks cute and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it to a dull roar.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things we've said for a long time is aim for a max of 5, which is tough.
It is.
But it means, if you end up with 6, 7, you feel guilty about it. Well, that's how it should be. It really should be. You should be aiming for 5 max.
Well, and I generally try to. I can optimize a site well enough if I can get it down to even 10 or 12. But what I have been doing lately, and I'm going to be doing an article on it, just for the more novice users out there. There's a lot of plugins that will do things for you that don't undo when you delete them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, there's one, I forget what it's called now, but it's for setting up 410s. Okay, if you've got a sizable site that has a lot of old content, or maybe you've migrated and culled the content, you could just drop in the URLs and it'll automatically plug into your code, the 410. And some plugins will do that kind of stuff, but if you ever deactivate, then all that disappears. This particular one doesn't. So it's the kind of thing that you can install the plugin, accomplish what you need to do, and then delete the plugin, and it's done. And it saves an awful lot of time, and it makes it a lot simpler for those that aren't comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm compiling a list of those plugins that I've found that'll accomplish things like that, and don't automatically undo themselves.
Yeah, and there are also plugins that they work a bit more like a cron job. They don't run all the time. There's some literally you run them from the back end, and they don't do anything, to the average page view.
Right.
Being very selective, but for people that need the guidance, definitely 5 plugins is your goal. Once you really know what you're doing, you can go past that, but yeah, aim for 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe target, unless you get the wrong ones. I have found a couple in my adventures that were unbelievably bloated. I had one plugin, I don't even remember the name of it now. It was one and the guy had about 2,000 installs and some 4.5 reviews on the WordPress repository. And I installed that thing. It added 58 calls to the page load.
58.
And 58, just that one plugin. And I ran it through a web page test, and I thought, good Lord, I was getting like 70 some calls. Now, what in the world? And I couldn't figure out where all these things were coming from. And it was stuff. What it was is all these options for the widget. It's like Jetpack. You might use 1 or 2 things, but it has 30 plugins rolled into one. And I haven't looked lately, but initially Jetpack was downloading all of it. Well, even if you're only using one of them, it was downloading the whole darn thing. And I pinged Matt on that, and he said, yeah, that's not good. So I suspect that's been remedied, but it's been 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know if he's even done anything with it, but I don't use Jetpack, so all that stuff can be hard coded.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine a few years ago that was doing a lot of development stuff for me told me that she was a real advocate of hard coding wherever possible, and she sold me on the concept. So that finally got me off my butt to learn how to do some more CSS and PHP.
Yeah, it's always the preferred way to go when you can. This is it. I'm still a fan, really, of building a dedicated site rather than reusing traditional code things that you can find about. You eliminate a lot of hack risks. You don't have to worry about trimming down the code, because by the time you've done all the things to really optimize a WordPress site, you often could have built the site in the first place.
Yeah,
it's a bit
you
like
a straight HTML site with as much or less effort. Yeah. I know. Terry's has gone that direction too. He started out being anything but a fan of WordPress, and as he got into it more, when he first started playing with it, the F-bombs flew. But then he got to where he played around with it, and he was using it, and it worked for him, and he figured out how to optimize it. And now he's kind of going back. The pendulum is returning. It's just like it's just not worth the effort. Of course, Terry's been coding long enough that for him to sit down from memory and write a site in HTML is he could do it in his sleep.
And even Perl and PHP and
And you say he can do it in an hour what it would take him a day to accomplish in WordPress. So I can understand that.
And I do think it's often the better way. A good developer doesn't have to rely on WordPress for speed. They sometimes do it for the ease of handing it over, or just plain laziness. But,
well, part of it is expediency, certainly. That's part of why I started focusing on WordPress. But the other thing is that it's so easy to train your clients to manage their own site. As far as putting up posts and editing and whatnot, you can take any novice blogger and teach them how to do the basics. Okay, they're not going to necessarily be able to optimize their images or put in schema, obviously, but you can teach them the basics. And even if you're managing the site for them, if they can at least do the basics, that removes so much of the time you have to put into it. If they can just get their damn post up and laid out, because you're going to waste half your time hand-holding otherwise. And that was what kind of chased me to WordPress.
I must admit, there are times when, let's face it, the issue isn't whether you can train them, it's whether they will actually do what they're told afterwards.
Well, there's that, yeah.
I find that's more common. Let's face it, if you can write a document in Word, you can operate WordPress. It's enough the same that everything is pretty logical. The problem is that clients either don't take the time, they don't have the time, or they just ignore what they're supposed to be writing. More often than not, I find that's the issue more than the technology. And at the end of the day, if you end up having people who know how to code ending up being the only ones actually writing the content in the first place, or they're outsourcing it, then suddenly that one advantage that was unbeatable about WordPress is gone anyway.
Yeah, very true.
Because even optimized, it's never going to beat flat HTML ever. Hey, Michael, how are you? Silent. We're not hearing you. Hey, some would say it's an improvement. Yeah, afraid nothing. Just check you got the right mic set up in the settings, because sometimes that's the. I must admit, I have about 4 different mics, so I do have to check.
Yeah, same here.
The link is on the G+ page if anyone wants to jump in and join us this week.
On another topic, I saw something interesting this morning hit my inbox from Data Breach Today. It looks kind of disturbing. A Wi-Fi security, a crack attack. In fact, I'll drop the link in the chat here. It's what it's basically doing. This is a vulnerability in the WPA2 system for Wi-Fi devices. And kind of concerning because there's a whole lot of those that, I wonder how many of the Starbucks and Tim Hortons are actually going to update their firmware. And certainly there's millions of households out there that are running Wi-Fi that probably won't get around to it. And they can do all kinds of things if they get into your WPA2, all sorts of injection, malware, keyloggers. I mean, basically, it lets them change the key. So not only do they get full access, you lose access.
Yes. Security is such a big deal. It really is. And this one is, it does look like it's a particularly, it's not something you're easily going to block without knowing what you're doing about security.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, supposedly all the big suppliers have already worked a patch but getting people to install the patch is the issue.
Oh.
And historically, patches only work for a while. You know, if there's somebody out there intelligent enough to design a patch, there's somebody else who's a little bit smarter that can design a back door.
Yeah.
Oops,
so I shared a link as well. So those are both on the event page. I think Michael's trying to get his mic working. Security is... I haven't had any problems in quite a while, but I'm reasonably cautious about, you know, where I go and what I've disabled an awful lot of Microsoft's default settings for what it allows and what it doesn't allow.
Yeah.
Partly because I just don't want Microsoft having all that data in the first place. I do think that you know, the risks we accept are often, you know, the key to how people are getting in. Unfortunately, you know, Microsoft Windows wants your data, and Google wants your data, and all these other people want your data, which means they're leaving open pipelines to pass that data around, and then an exploit just hacks into that. Hey, Terry. Good to see you.
Oh, how are you, Ammon? It's good to see you too. You got a big smile on your face. That's always good to see.
Yeah, I'm getting by.
That's good.
Yeah, we got no Bill this week because he's in Raleigh. Kristen, I think, is still looking after her mum. I haven't seen Jen in ages. I think some conference kept her.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to, Terry?
Oh, not much. Trying to figure out what Google's doing.
I want to buy a copy of that book when you get it done.
Yeah, one part of my query is just like full of all these aggravators and classifieds. I've seen them before, but I've been complaining about this for weeks. And it's not, before it was on really general terms, and I understood it. But now we're getting into specific terms, and like these are lousy sites. Like, you know, typical directories that we would have seen around turn of the century are ranking. Very depressing, actually.
I haven't been seeing that on my own searching behavior, I must admit. Yeah, I've been looking at various products and things recently, and I haven't seen that. So either it's a, you know, a more localized.
Because it seems to be even more localized than in the past. It's like before you would find these occasionally, right? But now it's like, and okay, so Craigslist, right? Why would you want to see 2 pages from Craigslist when the 2 pages are exactly the same? One is for GTA and one is for Toronto. GTA and Toronto are just 2 different words for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and actually GTA includes like London and all the little towns outside of it. You know, some of these are like a half-hour drive to get to them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a total, and I don't like to complain to them about their certs. Okay, I've only done it twice. Today was the second time. Like, where I just said, you know what? This is so bad, I've got to complain.
Mm-hmm.
The first time was when Hilltop was released. And I just saw, you know, authority, like, you know, if you weren't an authority site, forget it. And that's the way these seem. I mean, this space used to have a lot of providers in it. Now it's all aggregated. And I mean, where we would be middle first page, we're now pushed down to the middle of the second page.
It sounds like there's quite a bit of personalization in that, Terry. Obviously with the GTA in Toronto anyway. So you might want to try find a different browser to install for a while and try it on that, where it won't have any of the cookies, no matter how Google tries to hide them, and see if you're getting the same sort of results.
In fact, Terry, if you want to send me some search terms.
I've tried that. I sent them to 3 different people, but they're all part of our team, right? But they're in different parts of Toronto.
Well, how about, I mean, have you run out of any Mexico? I mean,
that's maybe that's a good idea. I should send the terms to you and ask you what you're seeing there. That would probably be
I
good.
can do that and send you some screenshots.
Yeah. And because we have a pretty international audience, I ought to mention GTA is the Greater Toronto area. Terry hasn't just been playing Grand Theft Auto all week. Well, if he has, he's not admitting it.
He's not admitting it, yeah.
So I've been looking at that, and I actually found a version of SEO Pros from before the turn of the century.
Wow.
When I first was working on it, because I was trying to dig up all I had on it over the years, and I found my original designs. I hoard everything. I don't throw anything.
The chances are I'd remember it as well.
It was really bad. Like probably the worst design job I've done in a long time.
In the 90s, though, let's face it, everything looked pretty bad.
That's true.
Well,
it was probably state of the art for the year.
Yeah, there was a time when GeoCities was considered cutting edge.
Yeah. Oh, God, I remember all those early shared platforms with the free hosting, GeoCities, Tripod.
Yep.
Tripod.
Yeah. Now we've just got Blogger and WordPress, of course.
Blogspot. LiveJournal.
Of course, Blogger does have one big advantage: is it's Google's network. It's not going down. It's not going to slow down. Hey, Arthur, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I still got those red hash marks on my microphone and my camera, but I can still see you and hear you guys fine. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, still working here as well. So.
Well, we've got your mic and your camera working.
Yeah, I hear it says it's not.
Of course, you're making Michael jealous. Because his mic was playing up.
Yeah. It's really weird. I've never seen this. And this is the only show that I've seen this happen. I mean, everything else I've been on, it works fine.
We are one of those shows, we do run this from a brand page rather than through a personal profile. And I think that sometimes can make a difference.
I mean, I got all the toolboxes, and I got the control room, I got everything.
We discovered earlier this week, though, that Google's been having some issues again with YouTube and Hangouts. I was trying to set up Doc with membership of the group, and he wasn't getting the invites. YouTube says it sent them. Everything on our end says that it's all been done. but nothing was coming through for Doc.
Yeah,
Today I couldn't use the application itself to do invites. Yeah.
weird.
It does often feel like Hangouts, they know it's, you know, got its replacement online, and they're not really interested in working it out. It always felt like a bit of a second string product anyway.
Yep. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Michael says it's free, suck it up. Yeah, I think Google say much the same thing, except they changed the S for a different letter. Yeah.
I believe that.
There are times when, yeah, it really doesn't seem to be going too well. Mind you, you know, we talked last week about things that were going on with YouTube, which of course still haven't been resolved. I'm still seeing more and more people complaining that, you know, their income has completely vanished. But from what I see, it does seem to be mostly gamers who are focusing on war games, action games. You know, so there is that level of, is it child safe, is it family safe, and of course, you know, is there anything you can actually advertise next to it? Knife sharpening. Well, it's a shame we can't ask you what you've been up to, Michael. Yeah, hopefully we'll get this sorted out and we'll have you. Give it a go. No, still not. Yeah. At least you can hear us. Yeah. Just have to type away like mad. We'll translate. Yeah. So, Arthur, what have you been up to this week?
Fighting with this OBS. I found a way through another program or a website where you could use Zoom and broadcast live on Facebook using that format where you can invite people into your webinar, you know, and because I want to start teaching my painting classes, that would be really cool if I could virtually have somebody right there that I can hear, you know, because when you do that Facebook Live, all you're getting is comment. So you're not really hearing anybody, you know, the same thing. Excuse me. I think it goes the same thing with YouTube Live. Is you get all the comments, but you're not hearing anybody. So no, there's no interactivity, which is what I need because I want to start interviewing, you know, artists, you know, things and whatnot, you know, but you know, I'm just having trouble with my OBS. I don't know why. You know, I mean, I've got 2 cameras that I'm running. You know, I'm wondering if I can.
Yeah, OBS is another one that it's pretty good. It's free, and you know it does show what gets developed is what the community wants to develop, what they want to get around to. There isn't necessarily a sense of top-down direction or usually you say that open source, you know, the people work out for themselves what's needed, and therefore, you know, because they are users of it, they develop the things that need to be there for the users. But not always. And there are people who don't use things because it doesn't suit them. And open source tends to be very bad at incorporating things that would widen the audience rather than that just improve it for the audience that's already there.
I was wondering if I'd be able to switch between cameras on here. I've got two of them running. I got one set up to point on my canvas, and I got my 920. I don't see anywhere I can do that on the toolbox here.
What, to switch between?
Yeah.
Usually you have to set them up as different scenes, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
You
that's
switch scenes.
I'm not on OBS right now, but it's through.
There's more and more software coming out that does video. Of course, you know, video's in high demand, so there's a lot more companies focusing on it. There's some pretty good apps coming out.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere else I can. Yeah, I mean, I can run 3 or 4 cameras.
Yeah.
You know, but for some reason, you know, I'm having the issues here on Hangout. I mean, I got, it's funny because I got a hash mark on both my microphone and my camera, but yet here I am, I'm still able to communicate.
Are you saying the hash mark is in the broadcasting software?
Yeah, I mean, it's right here.
Well, there you go. It's probably that Google is accessing those directly, and therefore the software isn't able to in the same way.
Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Wow.
But this is it. I pass my mic direct to the Hangout application rather than through the camera app.
Right now it's saying, that I'm mute.
Yeah, as long as Hangouts isn't saying it, you're usually fine. Hold on, let me just check the comments.
I don't see myself on the film screen.
Still teasing poor old Dave mostly about his earworms this week about moving. Although he hasn't moved that far, and he's still in Sussex, so that's not too bad. At least he didn't put his back out moving.
I don't see myself in the film screen.
So, Doc, how are things coming with your major project? You know, you've had SNC ticking away for a while. How's that going? You're still muted.
I think we've got about 5 weeks under our belt now, and it's plugging along. Still trying to build up some momentum with everybody that said they want to contribute, you know, so we get some backlog in, so we're not always scrambling to see what's going to go up tomorrow morning. But we're getting some good content in, good stuff, and like I said earlier, I mentioned to you that I'm going to be moving it to a CDN this week.
Mhm.
Traffic has been picking back up, and been ramping up pretty quickly. You know, capitalizing on a lot of the old followers from back when.
You guys see the painting?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. That's really weird.
So the biggest challenge at the moment, Doc, is what? Just getting the content coming through, or
Yeah, basically. Well, you know, and to be fair, we haven't actually put up a calendar. So, okay, Ammon, you know, your piece is due on the 12th, that sort of thing. You know, we've been trying to let people kind of say, well, you know, for me, the first week of the month is the best. Oh no, God, that's report week. I want to do it the middle of the month. We've been kind of relying on them to give us some input, and we're still in the process of putting together a content calendar. You know, for our regular. But we've got about 4 dozen pledged contributors, and you know, so when we can start getting, you know, if we can get a third of those folks to get us some backlog built up, that's going to give us a lot more comfort.
yes. And it's when I was thinking, look, if somebody says, "Oh, not at the end of the month," because that's when look, you write it when you like. We need to have it by this date.
Yeah.
What date you write
Oh,
it on,
yeah.
what date you send it on, that's all up to you. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, I want it every month by then. Work it out.
Well, and the thing is, we're not as news focused as it once was. We're more technical focused. So
Yeah.
timeliness isn't nearly as critical. We do like for instance, Kim did something recently on the proposed changes to the ADA, and that was timely because it was a serious thing and it was coming up. But you know, we're not as subservient to the clock as a straight news publication would be. But yeah, I'm trying not to be too hard-ass about it because I mean, I'm asking these folks to donate their time. I haven't sent out any big paychecks, and frankly, that's not in this cards. So, you know, since I'm asking for them to donate their time, I got to be a little bit kind about it.
Yeah. But it's one of those things that, you know, if you don't have a schedule at all, that's one thing. But, you know, once you've got a schedule, it's no kinder to change the date. It's just, you know, look, they should be able to work this out on themselves. If they need to do it by the 15th and you've asked for it by the 30th and they're busy on the 30th, well, write it on the 15th and submit it and you've got it by the 30th. You know, how hard is that for them to work out?
Yeah, well, that's what we've been talking about. We actually have to put a calendar together and set due dates, give people something to work with because everybody's working for a living. They've got better things to do than keep tabs on SNC's needs. So at least give them the information. But it's coming along nice and pleased with it. Still doing some fine tuning under the hood, but all in all, very pleased with it. Looking forward to. I need to actually start a campaign to gather more UK contributors because I want to launch the UK site. The site's up in rough format, but I want to get that thing going before the end of the year. And then the AU site, Oceania, is ready to launch pretty shortly, and we have even fewer contributors there that are already on board. So I think I've got like a half a dozen down under, and that's not enough to do what we want to do. But I'm hopeful that by first quarter next year we can get the AU site.
I mean, if worst comes to worst, have a look at the idea of syndication, where you could find some of the local sites and cherry pick what they're running to highlight.
Yeah.
It gives you.
We've looked at some of that, yeah, and we may actually run some of our content. The database is going to be searchable from all 3 sites. It's going to be a common database. So if somebody wants to see everything we have on HT Access hacks, then they'll do a search of the database, and it'll show them what we have on all 3 sites.
Yeah. Is it filterable so they can just look for their local one? If not, add that. Yeah.
Yeah, they can look just for Australia, or they can look for all 3, but and it'll be selectable. But we're also going to be running some content will be syndicated and canonicalized on one site or another. I don't want 3 copies of the whole darn thing up, but once in a while there will be some syndicated content going.
Right. Yeah, that you do need to be very careful when you've got your duplication across.
Yeah, because I don't,
quantities.
I know Google says, and a lot of people, and I have even said that Google usually handles canonicalization well, even sometimes in the absence of a canonical.
Mm-hmm.
But usually ain't good enough. I like to see that more the rule, not the exception.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're definitely going to be very conservative on that.
Yeah, finding good writing talent is it is sometimes getting harder because, well, if you can't pay, you're reliant on people who are doing it to promote themselves. And
that's the thing. That's exactly.
People who are most likely to volunteer are rehashing the same thing across a dozen platforms, which is no good to you.
Well, that's the whole thing. We're trying to focus. You got 2 kinds of people out there. You got the folks that are news and they want to build a brand, so they want to get their name in print. Okay, and then you got the folks that are established and they know what they're talking about and they want to share. They want to teach. And we're trying to keep that heavily on the teacher side. I don't mind giving new folks that are showing they've got their head screwed on tight an opportunity, but we want this to become a searchable repository of reliable information. And so I can't have 65 people out of Bangladesh repeating the same damn thing,
Yeah. But sometimes it's actually the top end you have to be careful of sometimes. I remember, well, I won't name them specifically, but there were some people that were headhunted for a particular SEO-related blog, and they were contributors to all the usual suspects, the top ones, and unfortunately that was the problem. You were getting the same article effectively that had already been on several of those other. They were just rewording a few of the same articles over and over to get them as widely covered as possible.
And there are even a couple of names out there that have been around for a couple of decades that are putting out pure crap. Stuff that was outdated in the beginning of the century.
Yeah.
And they're stating it like it's gospel, or stating opinion that like it's law. And we're very critical of that stuff.
Yeah, I've run into that. Especially when it comes to SEO. It turns out that I don't know a lot about it. Well, I do know quite a bit about it, but when you know more than they do and they're calling themselves an expert, that it drives you nuts.
Well, that's kind of the first flag. When somebody has expert in their description, they just fell to page 9 in my rankings. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If you call yourself a ninja guru or an expert, I don't think I have anything that I'm interested in hearing from.
Yeah, there's no such thing. How could there be? Yeah.
Well, to me, it means something. If somebody tells me Arthur's an expert, that means a whole lot more than Arthur telling me I'm an expert at SEO.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When your peers are saying you know what you're talking about, that carries some weight. When all you're doing is singing your own song, Go find a new channel to sing on.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with, because I'm trying to work on landing page now. Trying to get people into my membership site. I just can't get them in there. So on my landing page I'm building with Elementor, I've got testimonial, from clients of mine that I've done murals for and stuff like that. And I'm hoping to God that works because I haven't been a sale for so long that it's really killing me here. So hopefully this membership site will get people on my site so I can, get paid for the mark classes. I got a lot of stuff website, personal profile, their own art gallery, webinars. I mean, it includes a lot, and, plus a forum,
You do need to be careful, Arthur, that you're not in danger of dabbling, where you've got so many things going on that you're doing a bit of this and a bit of that, and there's not enough depth in any one of those. Sometimes you've just got to commit to one thing, and by all means have a second stream, but bear in mind it's a second stream and it shouldn't be getting as much focus. When you expand too widely, you're just spreading yourself too thin.
That's what I'm thinking it might be. Because everybody knows as an artist, and that's what I've been doing my whole life. For me, to come out, with a membership site, trying my hand at marketing. But I mean, I've been doing marketing my whole life too.
Yep.
I know quite a bit about webmastering. I do all my own stuff when it comes to my website and everything else. And I mean, I got a ton of information, on my blogging, how to stuff like that. But I'm just still having a hard time bringing people into the membership. So I'm hoping with this video thing that I'm firing up, that's going to help. Facebook Live, YouTube, all that. Just start painting live online. Let's put that painting that you saw. I'm working on that one right now. I'm getting ready to
I think sometimes you've got to be careful. The very first law of marketing is supply and demand, and the thing that separates real marketing from sales and marketing is that sales and marketing is still doing what companies used to do. They have a product and then they go out and try and find markets for it, new markets for it. Whereas, modern marketing is about don't even have a product until you know what people are already looking to buy, and then make the thing they can't get somewhere else, and you own that market. And you need to be a little careful with memberships and classes, because they are the things, let's face it, I can find art classes in any town in the world pretty quickly. So yeah, it's not going to be the same as you, but what I'm saying is most of those aren't subscribed either. It's a limited market, and supply tends to be higher than demand.
Yeah, it's very limited. I mean,
well, for instance, Art, talking about what Ammon's saying, if you were to display or show actually painting in process of a particular type of mural, let's say a space mural, okay, you might find that there's some people are going to see that and say, geez, he makes that look easy. I would love to have that in my bedroom or my living room. Now, then you might have identified a product that there's an existing market for, as opposed to saying, we do murals and here's 16 examples of what I've done, because they're not looking to learn how to paint. But if you can show them how easy it is to do, then it might occur to them, you know what, I could probably do that.
Yeah. Well, it is pretty easy. I mean, it's not that much to it. You know,
I can paint the dining room wall. It's about, but it's not a mural. Just one solid color.
Michael is saying that often it's much more about the experience of class than the actual learning itself. He's absolutely right. And of course, virtually, you don't get that in the same way unless you specifically market it to people who are less mobile. You know, a virtual class for those who can't get out, for the disabled, for veterans, for whatever, and then specifically alter the kind of art that you're teaching for that specific audience. So, you know, yeah, still life of things you can find to do in your own home, or you know, there are videos that show items that they can then paint. You know, you provide the item for them, you go out and film some scenery and say, here, would you like to paint this? And you do that as a class going, you know, onwards.
right.
But there you're tapping into a different audience that's a little bit more specific. The more specific you get, the better the results. But honestly, I think you'll start off with a few things. One that's really good would be, think of, rather than the full murals, I mean, a lot of your time is spent on replicating certain materials. If you can show people how to paint that old chest of drawers that looks terrible so that it looks like a different material that's really great, and that may be quite simple, that is something that's going to really succeed on YouTube. That's something people are going to do. And once they get into projects like that, they're more likely to sign up for other work. I would say definitely you should be trying to do more networking with interior designers as well, where you can do custom work for them.
Oh,
As
yeah.
you know, that's always great stuff. And you could do that in reverse, where you actually, what you start doing is interviewing interior designers, so that the people who are interested in the interior design kind of get used to coming to you first. You've got a reciprocal arrangement there, because if that interior designer is tending to get work from you, he's going to use you quite a lot in that work.
Well, that's what that's what I had was, you know, I mean, I had interior designers. I do faux finishing, Venetian plaster, ornamental painting on ceilings. And, you know, well, since my legs don't work like they used to, I can't climb no more. You know, so plus the market in faux finishing is just plummeted. I mean, it just seems like there's nobody wanting it anymore. It's rare, you know. And plus, we had a lot of people that moved into my market area. I'm in Naples, Florida, and people just came out of the woodwork. I mean, it was unbelievable, you know, that, you know, how many people got into it.
The faux finishing, you know, I've seen obviously quite a bit of your work over time. Some absolutely stunning. You know, I'm a fan. It might be as well that you need to tuck a little bit of money aside and start coming up over time with your own product ranges as well, where you can partner with paint companies or somebody like that, and you know, just give them a perfect product with your name on it that is just for faux finishing or just for murals and is tweaked for that particular use. Or whether you can get the materials, in bulk yourself and get it produced yourself. Chinese factories are pretty good for this kind of thing. You do need to be a little bit on top of quality control. But there's a lot of people doing wonders with the Amazon affiliate market and with the Amazon shops, where they're literally, investing in getting Chinese companies to produce and distribute this stuff to Amazon. Amazon distribute it to the end users, and there's a lot of money in it.
Oh yeah, it's very lucrative. I mean, I can do 2 or 3 murals a year, and I'm set. And but the full finishing market. I mean, it's here. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of marbling on columns, wood grain. There's overhead garage doors I just couldn't get away from. A lot of that. A lot of that's gone south because a lot of people got into it that really didn't know what they were doing, and they ruined the
once the judge sees that and there's 8 points, he's going to say.
Now people will think it as no different than a house painter, where it used to be that you were actually put on a pedestal. And I mean, it wasn't. I mean, for me to do a 10-foot by 10-foot mural, I would very easily get $10,000 out of it. And now anymore, there are people just giving everything.
Obviously, the things I'd say, focus on the commercial market. So murals for lobbies and companies, because they're still buying and they've still got some decent money to spend on that kind of thing, especially, good stuff. I would say do the YouTube videos that teach people how to do faux finishing. For well, most of them aren't going to get it, but of course, then you've got the one-to-one coaching and tuition. They're getting close. Then they can sign up for a couple of classes to bring it up. That will, it's more direct. It's not just here's an art class. It's actually here's how to get that project you've been wanting to do for ages done, and here's how I show you on YouTube. You're almost there. Why not sign up for a quick class? And we'll get you the last little bit of the way, and it's more specific. It's much more likely to sell.
The full finishing class, they're just, I mean, I know everybody in the business. I've been doing it for so long. Anybody that is anybody, I know European artists. I know, several people across the country. They built some pretty good businesses on teaching full finishing. But in the meantime, they flooded the market. They oversaturated the market with people.
Unfortunately, that is the general rule for any kind of service-based industry. The biggest risk of any service, including SEO, web design, all the rest of it, is it's the easiest to jump into. It's the lowest barrier to entry, because all it takes is just learning the skill or learning enough of the skill to get on. There are always more people, thousands of them born every hour. So competition naturally keeps increasing. You have to hopefully build enough of a reputation, enough of an edge that does the difference. But It is tough. There is always going to be more competition, and the cheaper and cheaper that competition gets, the harder your USP has to work to counteract that. Even once you've got this, incredible reputation, there's still going to be people who go, I can't afford that. It's like the very top lawyer. Most people aren't going to get the top lawyer. We are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to do a quick round to find out what everyone is up to in the week ahead. Doc, you were first in. What are you up to this week? Other than speaking while muted.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Other than just continuing with what I already have in progress, I've got working on SMC and moving that to a CDN. Still playing around with this iControl WP master console, which I'm really pleased with what I've seen so far, and it's pretty darn affordable. I'm $15 a month. I think I'm going to go with it. And I'm finishing up this week this client's project. So then I'm sure there will be a flood of changes coming down the pike if they're going to want to undo something that they said they wanted me to do. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Terry, what are you up to this coming week?
Oh, no good. Usual.
Yeah, of course. Michael, in the form of mime or interpretive dance, what are you up to this week? You're flying somewhere. You're crashing. Cool. Well, we are pretty much at time for this week. We will hopefully see you next time. Bill should be back, I believe, next week, so we will catch you then. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care.